The first class. These states declare all these to be comprehended in the first class, who were general officers, who led and accompanied the army into England, and all those officers that continued in the engagement, who commanded the force at Malignants Moor, or at Stirling, and all those who were principally active in persuading or bringing over of the forces from Ireland, and all these persons who were plotters, chief actors, and prime promoters of the late unlawful engagement, from the beginning to the end thereof, in Parliament, committees, or otherwise, siclike all these who were chief actors and prime promoters of the horrid rebellion of James Graham, and who, since, have either accepted of charge or joined as volunteers in the said unlawful engagement, or taken the oath in committees, or subscribed the bond for themselves or others for the engagement, or sat in the committees or other meetings and gave order for the prosecuting the said engagement, or who otherwise gave or received and executed orders against others for prosecuting the engagement, and also such clerks of Parliament, committees thereof, secret council or session, who were guilty of any of the faults contained in any of the classes at St. Andrews, and retaining their former principles of malignancy, and have been active in their places or employments for promoting the late unlawful engagement. The second class. These states also declare all these to be comprehended in the second class, who, not being included in the first class, have been formally classed or censured for malignancy, or guilty of the crimes contained in the first and second class at St. Andrews, the blank day of blank 1,600 and blank years, and since have either accepted of charge or joined as volunteers in the said unlawful engagement, or taken the oath in committees, or subscribed the bond for themselves or others for the engagement, or sat in committees or other meetings, and gave order for prosecuting the said engagement, or who otherwise gave or received and executed orders against others for prosecuting the engagement, and siclike all those persons, although not formally classed, and not being included in the first class, who were officers, who were upon any of the expeditions into England or Scotland for the said engagement. And siclike all these, who concurred in petitions, protestations, remonstrances, or letters for moving of the Parliament or committees to carry on engagement, and siclike all these who protested against the cause of the fast, or the Kirk's declarations, or the petitions of the presbyteries or Kirk sessions against the engagement, or read or caused read at Kirk doors and committees' observations against the Assembly's declaration, or interrupted divine service, or magistrates and persons of quality who removed at the reading of the Assembly's declaration, siclike all these who not only took the oath enjoined by the last Parliament for the engagement in committees, or subscribed the bond, or declared themselves ready to do the same, but also secluded others, or protested against others for their not taking of the oath, or not subscribing of the bond. Siclike all these who enjoined and pressed others to subscribe the bond, or take the oath for carrying on the engagement, and siclike all these who concurred as members or clerks in acts of Parliament and committee of estates for prosecuting the said engagement, or for pressing others thereunto, and such who consulted and gave advice for penning and prosecuting of the process against the honest ministers who were at Malignants Moor, or any others for their opposing or not joining in the engagement. The third class. The estates likewise declare all these to be comprehended in the third class, who, not being included in the first or second class, sat in Parliament and committee of estates, and took the oaths foresaid from the engagement, or sat as clerks in any of these or any other judicatories, and gave no public testimony against the said engagement, carried on therein by their service, or were in any way known to have been for the same in their judgment, manifested by their expressions and actions. Siclike all these persons who have taken the oath foresaid, or subscribed the bond for the engagement, or who in committees of war or other meetings, town council, or other courts, have refused or opposed the desires of any petitions from shires, presbyteries, sessions, or other Kirk judicatories against the engagement, or concurred in acts to force the dissenters, petitioners, or others to concur in the first or second levies, or other ways accessory to the said engagement, or with the force, under the Earl of Crawford, Earl of Lanark, and George Monroe, and siclike all such who were either forcers, urgers, or seducers of others to concur in the said engagement, or with the foresaid forces, and siclike all those who accepted commissions to be officers or joined as volunteers to the forces under the Duke of Hamilton, or the Earls of Crawford, Lanark, or George Monroe, likewise all persons who in their speeches or actions did evidence their judgments for and affection to that sinful course, or who, in such a time of trial, after such petitions from the shires, and such declarations and warnings from the Church, evidencing to the unlawfulness of the engagement against covenant and treaty, did not give any countenance to the cause or testimony of their judgment and affection against such a defection and dangerous war, when and where they had the opportunity to do it with others. The fourth class. The Estates of Parliament in like manner declares all these to be comprehended in the fourth class, who, being members of judicatories, clerks, and persons in public trust as aforesaid, are given to uncleanness, bribery, swearing, drunkenness, or deceiving, or are otherwise openly profane and grossly scandalous in their conversation, or who neglect the worship of God in their families. The Estates declares, enacts, and ordains that all such officers of estate, members of any judicatory, clerks, and others before mentioned, and all persons in public place or trust who are guilty of any of the faults before specified, contained in any of the four classes before set down, be presently removed by this Parliament or such committees or persons as shall be by them authorized with power to that effect, from their present places and offices, and all other public trust, mentioned in the Act or class at St. Andrews, or which has deputation from or dependence upon, the forenamed judicatories or officers, without prejudice to the subscription of them in the meantime for the exercise of their places, conform to the treaty and former acts of committees ratified in Parliament, and that these places, belonging to them ad vitam vel culpam, be declared vacant and filled with other persons, who are known to be free of these faults, and not only to have sufficient ability, but also who have given real proof of their constant affection to the cause and to good conversation. And that these who hereupon shall be removed from their places and offices are hereby discharged from meddling thereafter in any exercise, badge, or benefit thereof, under the pain of confiscation of their movables, life rent of their estates, imprisonment of their persons, and of being declared for ever incapable of the meanest public trust within the kingdom. Like as the Estates of Parliament, upon the manifold grounds aforesaid, doth declare, enact, and ordain that none of those persons who are guilty of any of the crimes contained in the first class shall ever be capable of or admitted to any public office, place, or trust aforementioned, within this kingdom, during all the days of their lifetimes. Like as they enact, declare, and ordain that none of these who are guilty of any of the crimes mentioned in the second class shall be capable of or admitted to any public office, place, or trust aforementioned, within this kingdom for 10 years to come. And further, until they have given sufficient evidence of their change of their malignant principles and practices, and of their firm resolution and affection to promote the ends of the covenant, and all the times of subsequent trial, whereof the judicatories of the church and state respective, having power for that effect, are to judge impartially as in God's sight, and thereby have given satisfaction to the church, and to both kingdoms, so far wrought by them, according to the assurance given on the 6th of October last. Likewise the Estates declare, enact, and ordain that no person who is guilty of any of the faults contained in the third class, excepting these as are accepted, shall be capable of or admitted to any place, office, or trust aforementioned, within this kingdom during 5 years to come. And further, until they have given sufficient evidence of their change of their malignant principles and practices, and of their firm resolution and affection to promote the ends of the covenant in all times of subsequent trial, whereof the judicatories of the church and state respective, having power for that effect, are to judge impartially as in the sight of God, and thereby have given satisfaction to the Kirk, and both kingdoms so far wronged by them, according to the assurance given on the 6th of October last. Excepting these who before the time of the promoting of the engagement were known to have been honest in the cause of God and not malignant, and who were known by their carriage to have been against the engagement in their judgment, and did concur in petitioning, dissenting, protesting, or raising in armies, or otherwise did bear testimony against it, as they had opportunity, and who, not knowing the nature and drift of the bond or oath for the engagement, were deceived and ensnared to the subscribing or taking of the same, which persons having the foresaid qualifications, and giving satisfaction to the Kirk, are remitted to the next session of Parliament, at which time, according to their repentance and carriage, they may be declared capable of public places and trust, so far as the Parliament shall think them fit. Like as the Estates declares, enacts, and ordains that no person guilty of any of the faults contained in the fourth class shall be capable of or admitted to any public place or trust aforementioned within this kingdom for a year to come. And further, until they have given to the judicatories of church and state respective sufficient evidence of their change of their scandalous life, and of their firm resolution, and constant endeavor for a good and Christian conversation, whereof the judicatories of the church and state shall judge impartially as in God's sight, and this without derogation to the former laws made against the same.